Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are tuning in today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I greatly do appreciate it. My name is Ari Taylor. I am the CEO and Chief Forensic Operator here at Barricade Cyber Solutions, and today is episode 5 of the Executive Cyber Threat Briefing. That where I take a couple of the top stories of the week and I try to break them down so that way you are aware of kind of what we are seeing in the industry that I don't think has gotten much publicity or communication about, and maybe a couple items for you to take a consideration in this weekend. So, if you are joining us from the YouTube channel, we just started pushing this out this week to YouTube. So if you're there, not YouTube, sorry, Facebook. So if you're on the Facebook feed, say hashtag Facebook or whatever, let us know that you're over from that platform. We're going to try that out for a couple weeks and see, if Facebook really is a platform to send this stream out to. If not, no big deal. We're just giving it a try. With that, we do have 3 stories that we want to talk about. The first one is something that just got dropped just a little bit ago. And it's definitely something very impactful that I don't think was discussed during this morning's. If you're a member of the Simply Cyber community team with Dr. Gerald Ozier, I don't think it was pushed in that feed already. So again, thanks everybody. I do see you, Jason Randolph, not only IT, Tom Bishop, and my partner in crime, Casually Joseph. So thanks all for tuning in. Greatly do appreciate it. With that, we will get the stories fired up. Turn that down. Pump this up.
Cisco has issued a warning about a critical zero-day vulnerability, identified as CVE 2023-20269, affecting its adaptive security appliance and firepower threat defense. This vulnerability is being exploited by ransomware gangs to infiltrate corporate networks, primarily through brute force attacks on accounts without multi-factor authentication. Cisco is working on security updates, but in the meantime, recommends implementing stringent access policies and enabling multi-factor authentication to mitigate risks. Business owners and executives should act promptly to secure their networks.
Yeah, so this is actually something that we've been communicating with some of our clients that we're dealing with and trying to get them ahead of the curve on this one because we do have a lot of folks that do with Cisco ASAs. So if you are with Cisco, again, this is kind of targeted to the C-suite. So you kind of know if you have a Cisco Anywhere VPN connection, or if you're using Cisco internally inside of your organization, then this is definitely something you want to jump on and start, taking a look at and mitigating inside of your environment. There was a lot of vulnerabilities that or vulnerability details in here. When I looked at this story a little bit late earlier, yep. So there is a mitigation flaw. Now, typically, just so you know, when you start seeing mitigating the flaw, this is a temporary workaround to patching a system or a vulnerability inside of your organization that may not be able to be permanently fixed by an update or something like that, or it does require an update and further mitigations. If those who have been around for a while remember Print Nightmare, that was a patch and some registry keys. If memory serves me right, the old Intel Spectre and MITRE attacks, or the Spectre and not MITRE, was another one. Anyway, I'll digress and go on a train wreck. But there are several things to do there. So in here, it does not mention anything about applying a patch. So I'm going to assume, assumption is the mother of all ups, that there is no patch from Cisco right now. That these are the mitigating the flaw tactics that you need to do. Definitely using MFA. I mean, let's just be honest, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not using MFA inside of your organization for your C-suite and for any sort of external access into your trusted environment, then we need to have a much stronger conversation than this, right? So please heed this. If you are using Cisco, please again immediately put in MFA The Okta supports it. I know Duo supports it. Uh, it's been a while since I messed with it, but I do think Cisco has their own MFA platform. I could be completely wrong. I just know some of our clients that use Cisco ASAs, they do end up going with the Cisco Duos solution. In fact, now that I said that out loud, I think Cisco deprecated their own one for the acquired Duo security that they acquired a couple years ago. So that would actually make sense. So again, patch, patch, patch. Or in this case,
You gotta patch it.
you mitigate, 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 right? So let's go ahead and get on to the next story.
In the wake of the recent ransomware attack in Dallas, business leaders are urged to bolster their cybersecurity measures. The attack, which compromised personal data of around 30,000 employees, has already cost the city $8.5 million in recovery efforts. Experts warn that the ripple effects of such breaches can extend to friends and family of the affected individuals, potentially leading to further scams. Business owners and executives are advised to remain vigilant and educate their teams on the risks of cybercrime.
Yeah, so this is something that's been going on. Like the story said at the beginning, this thing happened back in May. I forget the ransomware group that actually claimed it. So forgive me on that one. But there was one that took the entire Dallas metropolitan operations down for, geez, I want to say about a month, maybe two, while they're doing the recovery efforts. But this kind of just goes to show the impact. A lot of folks think about, the downtime to your business, loss of revenue, loss of, potential internal team inside of your organization, because a lot of folks will end up leaving. It's like, you know what, I've had enough of this garbage, and they're out. So a lot of loss of talent, but these cases can have massive impact for, as you can see here, months, and we have some cases that are going on literally years, where we're still finding pieces of forensics, and breach counsel is coming back and saying, hey, what about this and what about that, and we'll have to go back and start analyzing and doing things of that nature. So because a lot of times the biggest problem with a lot of these cases, especially ones that last about a year or two, is we don't have a full breadth of scope, when we do this. So a lot of times on those more sensitive cases, we go in, we actually fly in, we do full disk forensics, so that way we can capture some of that data later. A lot of times we've seen, and part of normal forensic operations, you don't capture like SQL databases and Lotus Notes databases, a lot of those databases and stuff, because a lot of times you collect the logs that are associated with it, but not the actual databases themselves. So a lot of times breach counsel's coming back, or the client's coming back and saying, hey, we need to further investigate for potential PII, things of that nature. So uh, John says that a royal ransomware hit the group. Yeah, John, thank you so much for that. I greatly appreciate it. Shout out to John for his comment, because I did forget which ransomware group did that. Now that you say that, that does sound familiar, right? So, and this does have a lot of impact, right? So some of the things that they did say is a lot of family members and things of that nature. So, this could have been, the municipalities. I don't remember the full breadth of what was actually potentially taken down and or compromised, but it could have been a bunch of stuff with like legal cases and divorce cases, marriage cases, litigation lawsuits, things of that nature. So there's a lot of stuff that gets handled through a local court system that could be potentially exposed through these things, right? I really need to start installing an ad blocker in this sandbox VM that I typically use for these things. But yeah, so this is the biggest thing that business leaders need to take away from this. One, we always talk about, where is your data? Like I said before, a lot of times we get brought in back in cases that we have to further analyze because we didn't realize where some of the data was. Where exactly is your data? Who owns and controls that data? Where who has access to it, things of that nature. So when you actually have an incident, you can kind of get ahead of this. But this thing is from the sounds of it, the forensics may be already done, containment remediation efforts may already be completed. Now they're just going through what's called breach notifications, and a lot of times those are external parties that are brought in by breach councils to carve through the data that forensics has had and notifying people. So there could be literally a lot of information that has to go through to before notifying. So in a lot of legal case, a lot of how's the best way to say this, a lot of situations, the breach notification is done by best effort or a reasonable time frame. So a lot of times when you're working with law enforcement, they could be able to extend that because you are working with law enforcement, the FBI, DHS, things of that nature. So um, it just think about it, right? If your business is impacted, what's the possibility of something like this potentially happening to you?
A new strain of ransomware, TZW, part of the Adhubelka family, is targeting small businesses and individuals, demanding smaller ransoms compared to other ransomware groups. This strain has been active since 2019 but went largely unnoticed due to its lower ransom demands, ranging from $800 to $1,600. The ransomware is primarily delivered through phishing campaigns, specifically targeting small companies and individuals, hence not making big news headlines. Experts warn that the group might expand and rebrand in the future, emphasizing the importance of basic security education and robust endpoint security solutions to thwart such attacks.
Yeah, so this is always an interesting topic, especially with the smaller threat actor groups. So when you, mm, I'm always trying to find interesting ways of saying certain things sometimes. The so I do the marketing team and I should say, and one other partner are putting together some marketing items and discussions and education. There was some major reports released this year or this week, maybe even last week, where they really start talking about small businesses being impacted. And we see a lot of times in the manufacturing industry, I would probably say 60% of our cases come from some form of manufacturing. And a lot of times, they are heads down and not even really looking forward. They're just looking at what's right in front of them and not wanting to stop production of, Bob Sprockets or, whatever widget or doodad or whatever thing that you're doing to, implement something as simple as, your internal technology and your operational technology. Like, hey, your accounting should not be on the same network as your machining equipment, right? And your software that's talking to it really shouldn't be that way. Um, I know a lot of manufacturing has a lot of custom line of business applications, but written by custom developers, and it could be a major problem. But just know that this is yet just another latest and greatest. As of right now, 30 minutes from now, it could be another one. These things literally pop up all the time, but latest and greatest ransomware group that is targeting your small business. And I classify small business as anyone 500 team members in your organization or smaller. And I know the US government and a lot of folks do various different categorizations of these type of things, but that's just my personal definition. So there are threat actors coming after your organization, and they're using things like phishing attempts to get into your organization and take you down. So, while this particular case, I'm not sure if it said it in the read, but when I was going through it, they did say in here that they are typically making ransomware demands of $800 to $1,000. Let me actually blow that up a little bit so that way you can see a little bit better. So this is a lower level. This is a lot of this, like when you're in our industry, this is very low level threat actor. It doesn't take a lot for these folks to, get through. Think of it as I guess a best analogy, think of it a tropical storm and not yet really a hurricane of any classification, right? So these are potentially unseasoned individuals. They're really just trying to, figure their way out in the ransomware world. And so that's why a lot of times their demands are typically a flat rate for the most part. They're a certain dollar, a set dollar amount for every case that potentially they or network that they potentially compromise, things of that nature. So don't be alarmed by that low dollar amount just to pay that ransomware note. There's other stories that I wish I honestly had time to get into, but there are being arrests made right now or just done of associated affiliates with the Conti and Clop ransomware group. So, yeah, while Conti is no longer really around, they've kind of disbanded. There's a lot of unified discussions around, you know, a lot of the TTPs that are being implemented by a lot of the other threat actors are being potentially leveraged by other threat groups that were originally in Conti. So there is a strong belief that a lot of the administrative back end people who code and put things together that were in Conti are in places like Lockbit and no, Hive is no longer around. Black Cat, Alpha V. There's, again, I'm getting a little too technical for what this podcast is really designed for, but again, don't minimize this threat just because of the low dollar amount. You still have the downtime of the forensics. You still have the downtime of negotiations. While it may not be like Dallas was showing, they had in here already has spent $8.5 million has already been spent in computer-based intrusion, I can't talk, mitigation and recovery and restoration efforts. That should really just be forensics. I'm not sure why they're using that over sophisticated word, but it's computer-based forensics. The mitigation, recovery, and restoration efforts, right? So, while you look at that big city, and that's a big, big number, a lot of that was probably paid by insurance. But, just because you see organizations like Dallas getting hit and having an 8.5, and they're not even done yet, right? You see things like this, like, it's under 2K, right? It's a line item in the books, but there's so much more to this than just that ransomware payment. So, just know this is just yet another quote unquote tropical storm, if you will, that is targeting your potential small business to get in, wreak havoc, and make a payday. Do not let these threat actors in your network by any means. Start locking down MFA, start closing RDP, please. Changing your ports in there is not good. I'll even show you one better, right? You see, listen, I'm actually going to minimize myself way down here in the corner. You see this little blue bar up here? This is literally my window. I'm going to kind of sit up a little bit, but it's literally called my Windows Sandbox, right? It's a VM of sorts. It's what we use to play with. I'm just using that bar as an example. If you are remoting into your environment from home or somewhere else, and you're seeing that bar as part of your connection, and you are not actually using things like a VPN to get into there, you have RDP open. Please close that down. Please, please, please close that down. right? That's one of the biggest ways people are getting into that network. So take that heed, please. Go forward. Think about these things, and think about the security of your network going into this weekend. And again, as I said in the beginning, there is that Cisco ASA situation that's going on. If you do have a Cisco ASA in your environment, please talk with your internal IT team and say, hey, have we already scheduled a maintenance window? So start implementing these mitigations so that way we don't get compromised over the weekend. Because I'm going to tell you, if most people hate Mondays, our busy time for our business is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Because a lot of times these threat actors are already in their network on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday doing data exfiltration. Tonight, they typically start dropping that ransomware payload. So, eyes up, be talking with your internal team about these type of situations. With that, I hope you really do enjoy this podcast. Thank you so much for joining. Again, if you are on Facebook, please let me know you're on Facebook. I'd really appreciate it. We do want to see if that is an actual something we should really keep continuing to stream to. And with that, I wish everybody to have a great and fabulous weekend. Until next week, y'all stay secure. Take care.
There once was a kid whose passwords laid across all sites. They were the same, a criminal then found their fame by taking that data to go.
Soon may a criminal come to steal your pictures and data and run. One day when the crime is done, they'll steal your account and go.